at the Bureau of Meteorology, I'm actually a meteorologist, so I do get to forecast the weather and talk about the weather. I love it. Some people can find it quite challenging, but I didn't actually fall into meteorology outside of uni. So when I started at uni, I actually wanted to be in chemistry and work in a lab. So whilst at uni, I was like trying to struggle to figure out what I wanted to do. And to be honest, in some ways, I still am not 100% sure what I want to do. I just know that I really love my job at the moment. So after second year uni, there was a opportunity with the Year in Industry program. So I then went and took that opportunity and went to the National Measurement Institute. And there I looked at analysing pesticides in fruit and vegetables and antibiotics in meat. It was interesting, and I learned a lot of skills during that year. But at the end of it, I was like, do I really want to work in a lab? And I was like, not 100% sure, but I quite enjoyed what I was doing. So I was like, okay, I'll go and finish my science and my arts degree. So I did a silly combined double that everyone's like, ooh, why would you do arts when you're doing science? And everyone in arts is like, oh my God, you're doing science. So it was a fun little dichotomy, but I went back and finished my science and did honours in physical chemistry, where I spent a lot of the year in the lab doing some laser spectroscopy and learning all sorts of interesting and wonderful skills. But at the end of that year, I realised that being in a lab wasn't really for me. And in all of this time, my family was like, oh, you're the strange middle child, it's fine. Maybe you want to forecast the weather. I mean, you really enjoy afternoon thunderstorms, so why don't you have a look at the Bureau of Meteorology? And I was like, oh, okay. Looked into it and realised that at the time I needed to have a lot of physics in my background, but I didn't actually do physics in the HSC or at uni. Instead, I majored in maths and chemistry. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can't actually do this. But what I did do was go to the physics school once I'd talked to the Bureau to find out what prerequisites were actually needed, and found out that it was mainly to do with like thermodynamics and a bit more maths. So went to them and went, this is what I've done, this is the prerequisites that I needed to get onto the graduate program. Can you help me and see if these relate and whether you can say, yes, I have these prerequisites. By going and talking to the first and second year coordinators, it meant that one, I showed I had some pretty good interest in getting into the course first of all, but made sure that I could actually do what I wanted to do. And so once I'd applied for the graduate program, it's actually held down in Melbourne, and we go down to Melbourne and you're essentially in sort of full-time school essentially, and you are learning some absolutely amazing science with a group of people who are very like-minded. And in fact, I don't think I've been in a room where I've had so many people do combined degrees the way that I had, and it was, it was very eye-opening. So once I'd finished my year learning all the meteorology, you then get posted out to the different offices. So I was lucky enough to come back to Sydney, where my family were, and started to learn. Now, when you start on the bench, the weather never stops, so you get introduced to shift work. You work in a really unique and sort of tight-knit team, and it's a really, really good experience, but you're constantly learning. Every single day is completely different, and at the end of a shift, you hand over to somebody and you've put your absolute hardest in terms of what you're expecting and how you're expecting the weather to unfold. It's a really unique and dynamic situation where as soon as you leave, you can be like, that's it, I don't actually need to think about this anymore. It's now, whoever I've handed over to's problem. When I was doing my honours, I found it was the exact opposite. There was never a break, and my supervisor would be emailing me at 2 a.m. being like, have you read this paper yet? It's just come out. And I'd be like, no, I actually like to sleep during the night. So that's not exactly how it worked. But at the Bureau, there's a lot of different like different departments and lots of different skills that are needed. So whilst I am in forecasting the weather, there's all sorts of different opportunities with climate and data modelling and looking at creating better models and computer coding, and there's just so many amazing things. But this little picture is actually from yesterday afternoon with some fires up in the north, and there was some pretty amazing stuff that you could see on the satellite, and it's one of my favourite things is looking at the weather, analysing it and seeing what's going to happen. So if you want to talk some more about Bureau of Meteorology, come find me over there afterwards, and I might just leave it there, and I'll be handing over now to Deborah from ANSTO.